of Community and Economic Development for the City of Greenfield, and this is the public hearing for the City of Greenfield's Community Development Block Grant Program, and we are doing this here. We also conducted an online hearing last Thursday evening, and the purpose of this hearing is to share with the community what the city is contemplating submitting for funding requests to the Community Development Block Grant Program, and also to seek public comment on that, and to seek comment on one other item that we're talking about this evening relative to ADA improvements here in City Hall, and also to provide an update to the community on what's going on with our existing Community Development Block Grant programs. I'm joined here tonight by Community Development Administrator Anna Oldman and Grant Program Assistant Christian LaPlante, and they serve on the staff of the Community and Economic Development and help implement and carry out and do all the recording and provide information. We ask that anybody who's in attendance this evening sign in. There will be an opportunity to offer comment on the activities that we are planning to submit, and we will receive that comment, which will be memorialized in the minutes as we move forward in the application process. I first want to give you an overview about what community development block grants are. They are federal funds that are made available to communities, largely focusing on benefiting neighborhoods and the quality of life for low and moderate income residents and individuals. That's the primary focus for these grants. They were put together about 40 years ago, maybe closer to 45 years ago, maybe even closer to 50 years ago, where communities used to get a lot of little grant programs, and the federal government decided that rather than give all these little grant programs, they would consolidate into a community development block grant and let the communities make their best decisions, being closest to the needs and knowing what will work best in their community. So the town of Greenfield is what's called a mini entitlement community, and what that means is that we don't get our funds directly from HUD, we get our funds directly from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But since we are a mini entitlement community, we do receive them annually. There are some communities that are eligible for CDBG funds, but they actually have to compete. This is not a competitive grant for the city. Our obligation is to make decisions that provide funding for eligible activities and meet the Community Development Block Grant's national objectives. As I said, the national objective is largely to improve the quality of life, particularly focusing on low and moderate income residents, neighborhoods, communities. There's also a secondary national objective that's called eliminating or preventing slum and blight. And there is also a third objective that's very rarely used, but it's to address urgent needs. What I thought I'd do is give you a quick overview of how the City of Greenfield has spent its funds over the last 13 years. We became a mini entitlement community in 2008, and since then we've received close to 13 million. And this was on the website, and it's available. We also have a handout here, and you can see that we've spent a lot of our funds on housing rehabilitation, infrastructure, social services. Those have been our large focus. We also have provided some funding for some commercial improvements. And also detailed at the bottom of this spreadsheet is the detail on the social services that we provide. The city is able to provide up to 20% of the block grant towards social services that are tied directly to the community development needs of the community. And you can see specifically for several years we've been standing supporters of the food pantry run by Community Action. That's the Center for Self-Reliance. For several years we've provided some funding to the Senior Center for some volunteer coordination. This year we're funding literacy program and some meals for elders at the Senior Center. That's it. All right, the next one. The next spreadsheet is a very draft budget of what we're going to be requesting under our 22-23 block grant program. Let me share with you that this is we usually apply for this once a year, but because of COVID and how that's impacted some of the resources that are coming to the state, we're a little off cycle. So instead of having a one-year application where we typically get $825,000, we're applying for a two-year program. This is largely to make up that they didn't do last year's grant program. So we're actually applying for $1.65 million, and like I said, that's a 24-month, two-year program. The city is intending to request funds to support the Wells Street shelter. I'll hop to the next one. You might know that the shelter at 60 Wells Street is being acquired by Community Clinical Support Options, that's CSO. They will actually be the new homeless service provider at the site. ServiceNet will be wrapping up that work this spring, and CSO will be taking over. So the plan is to continue shelter services at this location. CSO is intending, however, to acquire the property, renovate the shelter, and also add some housing units. Largely create some supported housing units that are tied to folks trying to move out of the shelter or folks in recovery. So this is something that the city thought was very worthwhile and want to support with some community development block grants. Also make a note that the project is also seeking funds from the Community Preservation Act, and they're also seeking a lot of state funds. The lion's share of their funding will come from the state through what's called the One Stop program, and they're looking to start on that later this year. At the moment, we're having a discussion that we will probably be using the CDBG money to facilitate the relocation, because during the rehabilitation of the shelter, it won't be possible to have the shelter guests there. We'll need to find another place for them to be sheltered especially over next winter, and with the goal of them being back on Wells Street at that location by the end of 2020. The second piece, I'm going to go back to the spreadsheet, is sidewalks. As you know, our sidewalks are, some of them are in pretty tough shape, and it makes it very challenging for people who struggle with mobility. And also, just generally, as we try to promote a walkable, pleasant downtown, safe downtown, we want to make sure that our sidewalks are in great condition. So we will be looking to allocate somewhere in the neighborhood of about $200,000 towards the quick sidewalk program.
So is that all over county?
I should share with you that when we use community development block grant programs, we really have to target it into those neighborhoods that are predominantly low and moderate income.
Well, I'm confused with the sidewalk and the road around Elm Terrace.
Say again, please?
Elm Terrace, I live on Upper Columbus, but Elm Terrace, there are a lot of people with walkers, and that sidewalk and the road are.
If you can hang on for a moment, I'm certainly happy, once I do the quick presentation on the block grant, I'm more than happy to receive comments.
Okay.
So there's the sidewalk program, like I said, it needs to happen in target areas, and those are areas that are predominantly low and moderate income households. The next program that we will be looking to do is for design and engineering for two projects, one of them being the Main Street Improvement Project. And some of you might have attended or are aware that we're doing a downtown revitalization plan, might have seen these maps before. But the game plan is for Main Street, the roadway, to be reconstructed from more or less Coleraine Street all the way up to High Street. And the design and that's being done by Mass DOT. That's not being done by Community Development Block Grant funds. But our concern is the condition of the infrastructure that lays underneath the roadway. And we're hoping that if we're going to be digging up the roadway, that we can concurrently upgrade any of the underground infrastructure that needs to be addressed. So we're looking at water, sewage, drainage, utilities, and exploring whether or not we need to have conduit under the roadway to accommodate the internet. But so we are looking to do the design and engineering for any of the water, sewer, storm drainage, and utilities, so that we can have the plans, bid-ready plans and specs for that. We do know that the Main Street roadway is scheduled to be reconstructed in fiscal year 27, according to the Mass DOT tip. I just want to share with you that on February 9th from 6 to 8, there'll be a meeting about that very specific program over at the John Zahn Center. So the idea is, if we're going to be ripping up the road, let's take care of the underlying infrastructure at the same time, so that when we have problems or we need to do upgrades, we're not ripping up a brand new road. The second piece, we'll go to the Court Square side, is to do the design and engineering for the Court Square project. You know that back in 2017, we had a community charrette where we talked about repurposing that space so that it became a pedestrian plaza. The design down here in the bottom left-hand corner was the preferred design at that point. We did have the opportunity to do a pilot and to block it off during the warmer months to see how it would run. We've learned a lot from that process, and now we'll be taking that, putting it on the table along with engineers and landscape architects to develop a final plan for what the Court Square project will look like. And then the next piece is, social services. Like I said, we typically provide fund social services through our community development block grant. We are limited to do a total of 5 programs. We issued a request for proposal to the social service organizations around the valley, well, around Greenfield. This is Greenfield specific. Back in November. Requests for proposals were due in December. And here's the list. We received 9 proposals with a total request of $584,000 plus or minus. Those applications have been reviewed. We are making recommendations to the mayor and should be having a decision on those in the near term.
Could you talk a little bit about the Wilson's property?
Do you have a specific question about the Wilson's project? It's not anything that we're funding with the community development block grant. I'm happy to talk with you about it. If I can just get through this piece and take comments on the community development block grant, I'm happy to answer any questions that I can about it.
It's on the map, that's why.
It is on the map. I used that 4 pages of map that sort of to help walk us through all the things that are happening in downtown, because there is a lot of stuff that's on that map and that will impact both the construction project for Main Street, Court Square, and the other, and the parking demands that we have in the downtown. All of this, it seems to be coming together in the next couple of years. So the next piece is, administrative funds. Community Development Block Grant also provides funding to support municipal staff to run the program. I'll share with you that Anna is fully funded under the grant program, and Christian and I are funded only part-time. We have other responsibilities in economic development that are paid for by the general fund. All right, so that is my CDBG 22-23 presentation. I'm happy to entertain any questions, or we can hear any comments about any of the projects that are on the list.
It's a lot shorter than you did the other night.
Sorry. You can watch the recording. We have the recording, right?
It'll be available soon on the app. I know there was a couple questions, but I do have a comment. But people who spoke first are welcome to go.
Sure.
Great. My name is Joshua Friend. I'm the site director of the Literacy Project right across the street here. And I'm just here to say that we are really reliant upon this program, the Community Development Block Grant and funding. We're very grateful for this opportunity. And our program, as you all know, the educational landscape has changed really dramatically because of COVID. And a lot more people are seeking our services than they were prior to that. So, as you see the, dropout rate increase at area high schools, a lot of those students are coming to us. We've already served 70 students so far this year since September. We have here in Greenfield in our classrooms, we have I'll be happy to know we have the second highest graduation rate in the state, just behind Boston Public Schools. So in terms of high school equivalency graduates, and a lot of those students are going straight from here to GCC. So really trying to feed the, high school equivalency to community college to employment in the area pipeline, and I think that speaks to economic development pretty well. So thank you for your time, and we're glad to be a part of this.
And you're with the Literacy Project.
Literacy Project, that's right.
Just wanted to make sure that people knew that.
Yeah.
Any other comments, Susan?
Yeah, I'm Susan Wojciechowski. I'm both representing myself as a resident of Greenfield and also Housing Greenfield, which is a community advocacy organization for housing. And we are just so excited that the 60 Wells Street project is going to go ahead. For those who may not be aware, this project will support a significant portion of the unhoused population in this town. It'll be a major difference. And, but we also recognize that the shelter's going to be closed down probably sometime June, July, whenever the construction starts, and there won't be any place for folks to stay. And we've pretty much got 30 people who are living permanently in that shelter at this point. So we really seriously support, both as myself and as the organization, support the money that is designated for the changeover that will need to take place and for those services. It's really important. Thank you very much for considering that.
And I'll also share that it's not absolutely locked in that we're going to do relocation. We are working with CSO and RDI to figure out what's the best use for the funds. They have suggested that relocation is a possibility, but if needed, we can actually use it for pre-development, engineering, other items too.
But whatever makes sense, just so that people maintain their housing during that period
Right,
of time.
that will be absolutely covered. I can assure you that there'll be no work that will occur on Wells Street without accommodations made for the existing shelter guests. Any other comments about this community development block grant?
Sure. Hello, I'm Ashley Kramer, and I'm here also as citizen but representative for the Stone Soup Cafe and our community free store. And that free store was created during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic at the need of the community. And though many of the aspects of the pandemic that made it a necessity originally have sort of changed, what we're seeing now is that people are really staggering under the price of groceries. Basic food staples have become unbelievably expensive due to a combination of inflated prices and gas and supply chain issues, and things like eggs are almost like $7 at the grocery store. And SNAP benefits that had been extended during COVID were just, I think, have just at the beginning of next month are going to be stopping, and so that extra grocery assistance is going to be taken away as well, and it remains something that the community has a great need for, and we were sort of surprised to find how elevated the program numbers have remained throughout, and we've seen a lot of growth in that program, and so just coming to hear about the other projects, but also to speak on behalf of the free store and say that we still see a lot of people who are coming in. These are low and moderate income individuals who are really struggling to just afford food staples the way that they used to before. So thank you for considering, and it's good to see all of these other programs around food and community as well.
Thank you. Any other comments?
So is home share, the LifePath home share program, one of the groups being considered for this?
No, it is not.
It's not, okay.
It's not. I know that, I believe that's LifePath that's running that, correct?
Cynthia, yeah.
And they're running it, the Franklin County Regional Housing Authority
Oh,
is working with LifePath. And the
Oh,
Franklin
okay.
County Regional Housing Authority administers many of the community development block grants for the surrounding communities.
oh, okay.
Okay. And I am aware of the home sharing program, and it is funded through that program.
Okay, great, thank you.
Are we looking at 24-month funding here?
Yes, that is 24 months.
Got it.
Yeah. Any other comments on community development block grant? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to preface this with what I have to say has nothing to do with social services. I'm all for it, but I do have some questions and a statement to make as far as the infrastructure portion, the physical portion of these grants. Could you tell me, please, what the total amount of money that needs to be raised for the sidewalks above the grant request?
I don't know that answer, but I'm sure that we can gather that information together. I know that the DPW has a list of sidewalks that needs to be done. And I do know they have some cost estimates, but I have not looked at the detail on that. I do know that the sidewalk, they gave us the listing of the sidewalks that they thought.
Well, this is specifically for Main Street I'm referring to.
Oh, the sidewalk program is probably not gonna occur along Main Street, because that is not on the priority list, because it's under the Main Street Improvement Program, which, when they do the Main Street reconstruction,
Well, it says here you have 200,000, you're requesting $200,000 in grants for the Main Street sidewalk.
no, we're requesting 200,000 for sidewalks that are not Main Street. And then there's other funding that we're requesting to do the design and engineering for the Main Street infrastructure, which is the water, sewer, and storm
Right.
drainage and conduit.
So that's my next question.
Okay.
Is there an estimated cost for that? I think upgrading the water and sewer, that's a great idea, particularly if it's the state's paying to tear up the asphalt. That's not coming out of any taxpayer's money, is that correct?
Tearing up the asphalt is coming out of our taxpayers' money, but not Greenfield specifically, it's coming from
Okay.
the federal and the state resources.
But you don't know what, this replacing the pipes, et cetera.
We don't, that's why we need to do the design and engineering. I know the DPW has done some preliminary evaluation to make decisions about what the extent of replacement, or just, they're talking about lining some of the pipes instead of having to pull them out and replace them. And I know that they're looking at that, but we don't have a final cost estimate for the construction of that, and we won't until we have the design and engineering work done.
And what is there grant money put aside for that?
For the actual work in the infrastructure that we'll need to do.
No, for the design and engineering cost.
That's what is in
That's
this
what-
funding request. In this funding request, we're asking for design and engineering for the water, sewer, and storm drainage and utility space under Main Street.
And you don't know, you don't have any estimates for that?
I have some preliminary estimates, but I know the DPW is still reviewing the materials that they got from Green Mountain, who was doing the televising of the pipes. So we haven't come on a final design and engineering number for that. I'm imagining it's somewhere in the nature of 300 to 350,000.
It's a lot of money. And what about, because I know this is a controversial issue, the Court Square. You have no idea about cost estimates.
The cost estimate for the design and engineering I have from the engineers, and that's in the neighborhood of $187,000. That's higher than what our DPW staff projected, so we're trying to get a better number on that.
And that entails cobblestone kind of,
Well, you can see, can you go back to the?
I see it.
Yeah, that was the plan that we had in 2017.
I mean, that seems like a very low estimate, and who's,
This is for design and engineering, that's not
Okay.
construction cost. There's design and engineering, which you have to do first,
right?
and out of that you get a cost estimate, and then you have to go into construction, and that's a different,
Right, and is there grant money to do the actual work, or is that the taxpayers' money that's gonna take care of that?
for the construction of
Correct.
Court Square, there's possibility that there could be grant money or there could be local money in that project also.
Okay.
Wait, so we're moving ahead with it without knowing? I'm sorry, I missed the last
I'm sorry,
meeting.
can I
Oh,
finish
sorry.
his
Yep,
questions? and
yep.
answer them?
You can go ahead.
It was related to his question, because I work nights, I didn't see the Thursday meeting, and it hasn't been on YouTube yet, and I wish I could have updated myself before I came. So, we're taking the grants for these projects without knowing how much we're actually gonna end up spending, how much the projects are gonna be?
Yeah, that's not unusual when you're doing design and engineering for a project. You're not going to know what the cost of the final construction is going to be until you do the design and engineering. So we know that back in 2017, when we had initial cost estimates on the Court Square, it was somewhere in the nature of about $1 million for the actual construction.
So, and forgive me if this is a stupid question, but the grant stuff I'm still learning about. So if we take the money for the design in the grant money, and we decide to not go forward with the town common change? Or once we take it, we're obligated?
No, we're not obligated to move forward into construction.
Okay.
The design and engineering work gets us to the point where we know what the cost of the construction is. The application for the construction is a secondary piece.
And at this point, the citizens have no say on what happens with the town common?
The citizens have a lot of say in what happens with the town common. We've had conversations that when we go into the design process here, that there'll be a community meeting for what that's gonna look like. We accepted a whole bunch of comment the first year we did the pilot, and we made some tweaks on this to try to make it work better.
I did see those meetings. There was a lot of citizens in the petition that was presented to the council, and the council's hands were tied. It was,
There was a lot of feedback, we made some tweaks, and the first year, yes, we did have a lot of less than complimentary, negative input and comment on it, but in the subsequent years, it's been fairly well received. We haven't heard a lot of negative comments.
I don't know who you're listening to, but you're listening to a different crowd than I am.
Well, you're welcome to come in and participate in the design process, and, you know, we can all share our ideas.
Well, we were told that when the library project passed too, and the design went up, they all made a decision on the first meeting. We never got any input, so it's hard to trust people in this community right now. So,
Well, like I said, we're gonna have a design process this summer. We will be out there inviting people to participate. We'll look forward to your participation.
okay.
So as far as City Hall goes, this is the money specifically for the ramp in the bathroom, correct?
Oh, that's the next agenda item. I'm happy to talk about that if we're done talking about community development block grant application. Anyone have any more comments on the community development block grant application?
I do have more questions to ask, but I guess we can wait.
On the 2022, 23?
Well, just in general, I have a couple other questions to ask, and then I just wanted to make a comment. But
Would you like me to take a moment and explain what the 25,000 is for the ADA improvements?
yes, if you don't mind.
Sure. In 2018, the city updated its ADA self-assessment and transition plan, and out of that came, it was an evaluation of all the municipally owned facilities, including City Hall. Out of that, there was a series of recommendations about improvements that needed to be made to City Hall to make it more ADA accessible, and the city is looking to implement those steps. We're largely focused around the bathrooms on the first floor and the ramp on the north side of the building. In order to do that work, we need an architect to actually do the design and engineering and to develop cost estimates. The city does have an earmark that is coming to it through some state funds, and in order to access that state earmark funds, we need to have bid-ready plans and specs and a good cost estimate.
So that's limited to the bathrooms and the ramp, correct?
There's some other accessible improvements is the language that's in the.
Because I heard rumors that they're talking about revamping the interiors building.
No, that is not, the
Okay.
focus with 25,000 in design and engineering money, that's not gonna get us very far. It's really focusing on the priority items, which are largely the ramp and the bathroom. There are some other accessibility issues that are mentioned, but they're pretty minor.
And this may be a little bit off topic, but you might have a little bit of knowledge, and hopefully maybe you can answer this. The existing library is currently assessed at about $800,000. Are we not better off putting this on the market for sale, which was the original plan, so as to place this back on the tax roll, as opposed to what some people are planning to perhaps turn this into offices for the city?
That is a question that I would put to the mayor's office. I'm staff for the city.
Right.
And I hear that there's conversation about what the future of that building might be used for. There's no decision that is made yet. I know that it is on the table that the possibility of using it for municipal offices is one of the possibilities, but
Which is not what was the deal in the beginning, but
I'm Not aware of any deer.
Okay, as of 2022, the Wilson's Building was assessed at $1,471,200, with the town earmarking $300,000 to help this project, and this is a question I have not be able to get an answer to about. With the city earmarking $300,000 to help this project, will that mean this property will be removed from the property tax roll?
The end result is that, the game plan is that Wilson's will be 2 condominiums on the ground level and in the basement. We understand the co-op will be doing the build out there and they will be owning that property and it will be a commercial operation and taxed as such.
Okay.
The other part of the building is going to be owned by the community builders. They are a nonprofit housing developer. They own residential property in town already. They own Leiden Woods, and they are taxed on that at a certain level. I'm not sure it's the full taxable amount, but there is a tax that they do pay, real estate property tax that they do pay.
Okay, so so that's sort of good news, because I was afraid that that was going to be taken off the tax roll. And we need as many tax dollars as we can in this town. Now, with the exception, again, with social service issues, why isn't the city waiting to pursue these projects until after taxpayers are done paying for present projects, specifically the new library and fire station and past projects we are still paying for, like the high school? Is this administration trying to trap us by having people writing letters to support when most citizens don't even know about these grants? These projects look fine and dandy on paper, but to what expense to the taxpayers? The city is currently in crisis mode. We have a lame duck mayor. I say lame duck because the majority of the citizenry are prepared to vote her out of office, who wants to spend like a drunken sailor on her pet projects, specifically the town common.
Can we keep our comments to the project itself?
This is all relative. This is more she is more concerned with protecting a police chief who was found responsible for racial animus in a court of law, seems to have done nothing about the chairman of the Board of Assessors, who appears to be a dubious character at best, than looking out for the taxpayers, specifically single-family homeowners. The brunt of these costs fall on the backs of single-family homeowners through their property taxes, and commercial properties in this city are under-assessed compared to single-family homes.
Excuse me, sir, this is a public hearing to discuss community development block
I'll be
grant
done in a second.
activities.
20% of homes in Greenfield are owned by folks over 65, and many of whom are on fixed incomes. These enormously expensive back-to-back-to-back-to-back projects are making homeownership unaffordable in this city. And I regret to say, for many, the equivalent to death by 1,000 cuts. Since 2010, the population of Greenfield has dropped by about 1,000. The property tax rate in this city is outrageous. And remember this, at last week's special city council meeting, the mayor hinted at a Proposition 2.5 override come this next fiscal year. Enough is enough.
Does anyone else have any other comments, please? Okay. So we're talking about the use of $25,000 for program income from the community development program so that we can address the ADA requirements that need to happen here in City Hall, specifically the bathrooms and the ramp on the north side of the building. And then the last piece is just to give you an update on the existing community development block grant programs. The city, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, has multiple years that we've received community development block grant programs. We are still open with our CDBG 18, 19, and 20 grant activities. Some of that was due to the scheduling difficulties brought upon us by the pandemic, but we should be wrapping up the Community Development 18 grant by June, the Community Development 19 grant by June. What we have in those grants that are still open and operating are our housing rehabilitation program and also a little more work to be done on the GSET installation. And Our fiscal year 2020 grant still has an open project that is the planning funds that support the downtown revitalization plan update. We're working on that actively. You might have been at the January 19th meeting where we rolled that out, clearly talking about the number of things that are happening downtown and the need to have an updated revitalization plan to pull it all together and make sure it's coherent and well communicated. I'll also share with you, and it's not in the update because we just received an approval for it, is we've had $25,000 of uncommitted funds in our Community Development 20 program, and we will be using those to provide a little assistance to one of the properties that's owned by the Greenfield Housing Associates with some water infiltration issues they have in their basement, so we'll be taking care of that during the spring with them. And then our fiscal year 21 program, we have ongoing social service programs that are ongoing. We have the literacy project, the community CSR.
Yeah,
Center for Self-Reliance, the food pantry, and we also have Life Pack meals for elders at the senior center. We're also doing the final work for phase 2 of the West Street infrastructure project, which was replacing water and sewer. No, I'm sorry, just sewer. Just sewer on West Street. And the final paving and the driveway aprons will be done in the spring. So that's our 21 program. We'll be looking to submit the 22 application at the end of February. Typically what happens is we submit it in end of February, early March. Awards are made May or June, and the programs actually, we get the grant in July. Activities usually start up in the late summer. So this again, I'm saying, is a 2-year program, so whatever we decide to finally fund in the amounts that are funded will go into contract later this year. And there's an ongoing process. We should share with you that if you want to know on a quarterly basis what's going on, our Sustainable Greenfield Implementation Committee is our citizen advisory committee for the Community Development Block Grants. Every quarter we give an update on what's going on. You're more than welcome to attend. Or if you have questions, you can contact me, or Anna's brand new, so don't contact her quite yet. But Christian or I can help you with any questions you may have. Susan.
And we were just wondering, the Oak Courts sidewalk issue, because it's come up, not just tonight, but it's come up at other times. Do you know if that's part of the plan for the sidewalk rehabilitation?
I don't know. We're going to be meeting with the DPW, and I will look at that specifically. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
I'll just say lastly, I know a few of us spoke from kind of differing perspectives from the social service kind of world in Franklin County, Greenfield, and just that I think the mayor and you guys, your team here in the City Hall has done a great job of really kind of building a really strong safety net for our community. And I know a lot of our students, they're not just getting serviced by the Literacy Project, they're also going to the food pantry, free store at Stone Soup Cafe. Maybe they're experiencing homelessness, so they're going through the shelter. They're out at Leiden Woods, so the GSET expansion has really aided them. So it's about building those layers of support and that really allow our community members to thrive. So just want to say we're super grateful for everyone who's doing that work, keeping that network built.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'm closing the public hearing at 6:08 p.m. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jay.